Settling into a comfortable seated position. Remember to begin by simply settling into the present moment, letting go of any sense of momentum from the day. Don't shift immediately from doing something earlier in the day into now you're doing something here. Let all of that go. Notice if your body is continuing to maintain some pattern of stress from earlier in the day. Just as you exhale, simply let it go. With each exhalation, a bit softer, a bit easier, more comfortable. Even softening, you don't want to turn into some project that you're undertaking. You're letting go of the undertaking of projects. few more minutes. Letting your whole system settle. Letting your emotions slow down and become calm. Letting your mind and your intentions become comfortable and easy, quiet. You're just here. Quit trying to be anything and just be here. A few more breaths. Softening your hands, your feet. Softening your breath. Bringing warmth and life to your palms. Using that softness to wake up the top of the head. Continuing to soften your hands as you touch your body. And perhaps more importantly, softening your intention. See if you can find this comfortable space where you are simply present, quiet and comfortable, relaxed. I'm no longer trying to do anything in particular or be something different. You're just here, enjoying the moment. Find that level of softness. Continuing to soften your body, soften your hands, your mind. As you circle around the eyes, again, make sure that you don't push against the eyes themselves. Just enough pressure to aid and warm the circulation beneath the skin. And to help your mind connect and become aware of this layer in your body. And as always, I always forget to put my phone on sleep. As always, I want to welcome the people who are joining us that have found themselves here through the internet that aren't quite certain what we're doing. Please do look down below the video in the comments section for a link to an introductory lesson, as well as some text describing the points that we're touching. And it can be nice to learn the basics before trying to join in live sessions, especially when we're 77 days in. Allow the warmth and the softness of your hands to communicate with this layer of the body. As you soften the jaw, get better and better at feeling into that space. You're just noticing. You're not trying to push your mind. Simply allow the warmth of your hands to soak in and to draw your awareness there. It's a very comfortable thing. We have to learn how to unclench our mind. Most of us already know how to clench our minds. We're already good at tightening and forcing our awareness to do something. We also have to spend time learning the opposite, to let go.
Here.
Oh, will you turn that light on?
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Continue until your ears feel nice and warm, that heat soaking in, and then compressing the ears, but not too hard. your hands softer and softer. Allowing your awareness to deeply settle into that space between the navel and the spine. Especially after working on the head, making certain that everything sinks down. And if you find that it's taking longer than usual, take the extra time, because it means that it's especially important for you to let your awareness sink down into your body. Earl Grey.
Oh, very nice.
Very nice.
Let me know if you need more.
Thank you. Letting yourself come to rest. So happy that everybody comes to join us.
Looks like Steph is saying goodbye.
Oh, thanks, Steph. We appreciate you. Continuing to get quieter, quieter. Letting go and letting go. Especially for people that have been practicing for a while now. It's a very important skill to cultivate, to learn how to become quiet. People are very good at doing things, adding things, trying to get stuff, making things happen. And then they never develop the skill of letting go of all of that gripping and needing and doing. And all of these skills must be built on the foundation of stillness, deep stillness. Completely free, eventually, of all of those desires and needs and worries and tensions and grippings and doings and
Oh my.
oh my. Otherwise, everything that we do is tainted with those things. So you have to learn how to clear the field. Sweep all of that away. Not because you do the sweeping, but because you stop the wanting. You have to let go of all of that stuff, settling into some form of stillness, however close you are able to get. The mind starts to become more quiet. The breath gets easier. The body gets softer. Your emotions become more calm and peaceful. That's the right direction. Continue in that direction. With every circle in the body, let that kind of peace soak into the tissues. If you bring along with you some kind of agenda built on your own fears and your own ambitions, then that soaks into the body. She carries information. We want to be as clear and free of all of that stuff as possible. Just loving intent. especially if your mind is very filled with anxious thoughts and busy. These points here, just on the inside of that pinky tendon, little finger tendon, heart channel, can be very helpful to helping soften that tendency, slow down the mind. Large intestine 4, small intestine 3 on either side. This one's good for the spine.
This one here?
Yeah, it's just up against the bone there, below the little finger knuckle.
Okay.
This is the main point that we're touching, but it's nice to be able to reach around. And so I think your index needs to go a little, oh, yeah, you're right. In that space just off of the bone there.
Yeah, the fleshy part.
Yeah, there's a little hole there. Again, softening your mind, letting your awareness be centered and quiet. Remember that this doing portion, the actual connection with the tissues, the softening of your hands, all of this actual work that's happening does not require that part of you that is trying to grip, trying to force things to change. That part of you that is unhappy with things as they are. Part of you that feels the need to jump away to some fantasy or feels frustration about how long it's taking for you to soften your shoulder. That piece, totally unnecessary. Not part of the practice. That entire part of your mind, which is actually quite insignificant, gets to take a break. At some point, gets left behind.
So if I'm noticing tension and there's an expectation that arises in the mind to do something to soften that tension, that's moving in the wrong direction. As long as we attach to that expectation.
That's right. Yeah. Because it doesn't require some huge movement of emotion and thought to let go of a gripped hand. Oh, I noticed my hand is gripped. Your hand instantly starts to let go because why would you do that? If you notice that you're holding your breath, you don't have to go through some whole internal monologue to decide that you're going to breathe. You just instantly let go of the held breath because it's uncomfortable. You touch a hot stove, your hand comes away quickly without that entire additional piece of personhood being attached to it.
And if it's difficult to, because first I imagine for, at least for me, it can be difficult to instantly let go, as you just described. And so what I find my mind doing in that situation is kind of looking for where I'm holding.
That's right.
And I sense that that is also moving in the wrong direction.
Well, the looking is fine, like becoming more aware, paying attention to what's going on. But the part of you that is often considered your personality or your sense of self, the part of you that is unhappy with it being how it is, that's judging the process, that's thinking about it, that wants to do it the right way, that is remembering the last time you did this the wrong way. Oh, this is taking so long. That whole piece is a part of that. None of that's required to actually pay attention to what's going on. So the mind, your mind doesn't have to be blank. You're still present. Your mind is still functioning. The working, useful part of the mind is there. But the part of you that's not useful, that causes all of the suffering, that gets brushed aside. So when we talk about the momentum of the mind, there's this quality of emotionality and personhood. I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about my future, my past. My emotions are wound up around some stressful thing that happened to me earlier. My body is gripping in preparation for the next attack from my boss because he said something to me that was mean earlier. And that whole aspect of it can be let go of, and it doesn't impact the practice. It only helps. And when we're noticing, for instance, that we're holding our breath, we can pay attention to look for how to release the breath. Why are we holding our breath? But that doesn't require the conversation with ourselves. It doesn't require reflection into my idea of how I'm getting it wrong. That whole piece of it, the storyline doesn't need to be there. And it's the storyline that brings the momentum, because the past is just imagination as much as your idea of the future is. It's all just imagination. We're trying to leave the imagination out of it. We're trying to be here. And here is always present, still, peaceful. Here it doesn't have momentum. It's just here. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I guess I was noticing less thought and more pushing of chi. So if I notice there's an area of gripping, then maybe there's a tendency in the body to compensate elsewhere. That whole whack attention thing that ZhiCheng describes. And so I think your answer was beautiful. And I think what I'm hearing is that it's okay to be frozen. It's okay if, for the time, we're not able to instantly release an area of tension, or the breath, for example. It's enough to just be present with it.
That's right.
To experience whatever that tension is. And then eventually, over time, the body will learn that it's safe to let go of those places. But there isn't anything that we have to do in the meantime.
That's right.
So when you're talking about instantly letting go of the breath, for example, you're not telling us to do something other than just notice.
To notice. Yeah. Your awareness is there, and the change happens on its own without the part of us that we usually think of as us trying to come in and control it.
Yeah.
Because that's the part of us that makes it not okay that we're not softening fast enough. That's the part of us that feels the need to do it better. Mm-hmm. And that whole piece gets left aside if we're just here.
Right.
Yeah. Which, of course, requires practice. Because we have the habit of going into that part of our mind that is judgmental and choosy and, is reflective upon our past experiences and all of that stuff. When our whole practice is just coming back. Oh, I'm over here. Soften around that. You drift back. Now I'm here. And in that space, that's when the body can let go. That's when the mind that's in the body can help release the tension. Because when the mind that's of the body is caught up in fantasies and stress and thoughts, it doesn't have the option to let go, because we're too busy fighting the fight with our boss from 2 weeks ago for the 675th time. And it's not helpful. And our body holds that tension. Our body is gripping around our breath because it thinks that we're fighting a battle, Some existential dread is trapped in my wrist. Mm-hmm. And until I can let go of the part of myself that is dreading those things, they can't release it here either. So the ability to come back and just be here, just here, like that's where healing can start. And then we deepen that process.
Thank you.
It's a very confusing topic. I apologize if it feels confusing. If it does, just ignore me and simply practice settling into the moment. You're just here. I'm just here. Opening my wrist is what I do. Letting everything sink and soften into the tissues. Constantly letting go and letting go. And you can do this series of arm washing and shaking throughout the set if you notice your shoulders and hands starting to get tight. And similarly, if you notice that you're starting to feel agitated and your sense of your chi is coming up, then you just do closing again. Sinking down through your body. Letting go, letting your awareness collect in that space. Inside. Feeling the warmth of your hands soaking in. If you're able to allow your awareness to settle into this space, it can be transformative. But do, again, make certain that you're not pushing your mind here. You're not trying to hold your mind here. Instead, you have to learn how to soften your mind and allow your mind to naturally sink into this space. It's like your awareness has weight in its own. And if you just rest, it sinks like a stone through your body into this space. And over time, this space, as it comes to life, slowly you can shape the space for it and then warm and activate it as long as your awareness can rest here. Rest, not push. And then all kinds of sensations can happen from warmth or movement. But we want to continuously not try to control the mind or control the space. We are continuously letting go. Later on, if you take up different kinds of practices, different kinds of Nathan practices, internal medicine methods, or practices like Taiji, or these things, you can start to engage with this space differently. But for health, in the beginning, we just rest. And learning to rest is so important. That's the theme for today. I'm trying to help to remind people that we don't want to start adding. We're not always trying to do things. This fundamental level of simply being here, the ability to just sit and not need anything or do anything. You're just here. You're simply existing. That skill is profound because the parts of you that are softening in order to allow you to do that, to simply rest here, is necessary. It's more important than softening your shoulders. And so as we practice, maintain this sense of just being here, just being at rest, letting the part of you that is needing to do stuff all the time rest. You can always go back to it later. And then in that state of rest, very gently, this like the smallest intention, the width of a hair, like a soap bubble intention of, oh, now we start to soften. Or, oh, now we just let our mind naturally sink into the Dantian. It's the smallest intent, intentless intent. It's like it's not even there. It might only be there because my Shifu said, hey, do this thing. And I said, okay. And I don't have to think about it. It's just the next thing that happens because he told me to. And so I don't need to like formulate some whole sense of self and a plan and what's going to happen and how it should be and all of that stuff. That entirely is gone. Not subdued, not ignored or pushed away, just relaxed, because all that is in agitation. And so as we sit here, just for a few breaths, let all of that continue to fall away. You're simply here. Most basic level of being a human. It's amazing how this is an advanced skill.
That answered my question earlier.
Oh, good.
That was wonderful.
Oh, great.
Yeah, what you said about the intent being more important than the result.
Mm-hmm.
The intent being more important than softening the shoulders, for example. Like I'm noticing so much tension everywhere in my body right now, my solar plexus especially today. And my habit is to try to basically reposition myself somehow to become more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But you just reminded me that it's the softening of the intent that's more important. It's the how we're doing what we're doing.
That's right.
That's more important. And so being able to have kind of a gentle, kind awareness of that tension without even the slightest expectation or motivation to change it.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Like, I can't get that reminder enough. Thank you.
And it's okay also to be soft enough so that your body repositions itself to find a better way. You also don't have to hold yourself in the uncomfortable position. You're simply free of all of that stuff.
Thank you.
Sure. It's a very good practice. And so if you are finding yourself comfortably resting here, like you're sitting with your closest friends, you're just at peace, sipping a cup of tea. The air is fine, you're breathing, it feels wonderful, the sun is on your skin. We had that experience this morning sitting by the river. You're just here. You don't need to do anything. You're not trying to overstimulate yourself. Those moments of quiet in between everything. And then within that, you simply allow this vague idea, hey, maybe I'll start doing this. And you just follow. You don't need to push yourself forward. You don't need to control your mind. That's all just tension. You're just adding agitation to your mind. It doesn't require that. This is not difficult to follow. And in the way that ground level of awareness is simply this quiet in-between space, this space that doesn't feel like anything except contentment, this space that we're reaching into between the skin and the musculature, this fascial layer, it seems like this empty space in the beginning. Your awareness flows into the empty spaces. It's the same thing. Your awareness is simply resting in the place where there's space. You're not trying to find something. You're simply aware. It takes the pressure off. It's funny how in the Tao Te Ching there's this, or in Zhuangzi also, there's this constant refrain about like the scholar is brilliant and the people know all the things and the sage is just dumb, doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
Oh, the sage, they're just sitting there. What do they know?
Empty of knowledge.
Empty, free. And it's possible to be a scholar sage, there's that idea, but first, like, they're not the same thing. You have to be able to be dumb. You have to be able to be just here, just free, without, I gotta do all the things. Oh, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. You should be investing in crypto right now. What are you doing?
Or solving some problem.
Solving the world's problems. greatest goal is to become the dumb Taoist.
Yeah. Maybe after class we can talk a little bit more about what that word dumb actually means. Because I think it has probably a number of connotations.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Just letting yourself be at rest. Like you're lying in a field, watching the sky, the clouds are drifting past, trees are moving, your hands are moving. In the most relaxed way, just in the same way that you'd watch the clouds or maybe watch the leaves on the tree as they blow. You simply watch as your hands move and your awareness sinks inside. It doesn't require a lot of pressure. The less pressure you use from your mind and your intentions and your needs, the easier it is to settle. It feels counterintuitive because we've been trained our whole lives to believe that we have to fight and force and control everything or nothing happens. When all it's doing is opening that quiet, sweet space within which contentment lies. It's the most revolutionary thing there is. Your awareness like tossing a coin into a wishing well, and the coin just floats down and down and down, settling into your belly. your awareness resting beneath your palms, feeling that space inside your body, just beneath the skin. Your mind is quiet and gentle, easy and free. You don't have to push it hard. You're just here. The more gentle and comfortable you are with resting your mind in places, the less agitated it becomes. And not only is it easier to soften your body, but your mind is far less likely to jump away with distractions because it's not being pumped full of agitation juice.
That'll be the next energy drink name.
Agitation juice. You too can become uncomfortable with every decision you ever make. Agitation juice. Ting. Send your sponsorship money now. Remember that as you work on points here, for instance, stomach 36, that you are hinging from the hip. Your spine stays long and comfortable, easy. If you're uncomfortable in this position, you can sit on the ground, pull your legs up, find a different way to connect with these points. But you don't want to crouch or round or try to arch your way into it. Your spine is softened long, and then you continue to soften long as you release forward. And with practice, as long as you can soften your chest and your belly enough, you'll find that you can hold yourself up without pulling on your back. The weight just continues to settle into the chair. The natural springiness of my legs is enough to hold me upright. And this movement upward through the top of my head is enough to maintain the posture without tension. So I'm not feeling it in my back.
Other than a slight stretch.
Then a slight stretch, yeah. Yeah, not feeling it in the sense of tension. Yeah, the tissues are just lengthening slightly. It's amazing how much strength is just in the tissues once they're lengthened slightly. They kind of naturally hold everything, and you can rest into them. And that, I think, is also part of what happens with Tai Chi practice and things as your body softens and then it fills. It's kind of like the tissues inside become stretched open like this. And so they become capable of movement and power, seeming power, even though all we're doing is letting go. But in the very least, they can hold you up when you're sitting. Maybe even more important. Definitely more important.
Yeah, this whole process kind of reminds me of what it was like to learn to ride a bike for the first time as a kid. My dad would take me out, and of course he would hold me for the first several attempts. And at one point I didn't realize he wasn't holding me anymore. And it was really cool. It's like, oh, I didn't have to do anything different.
Yeah.
He just had to let go.
He had to let go. Yeah. Did you crash after you noticed?
I don't remember.
That's how I was taught how to ride as well. My dad at one point let go, and I noticed he was gone, and I turned all the way around to see where he went, which is not the greatest thing to do on a bike.
Oh, yeah. Been there, done that.
But that's right, that sense of we think that we need to be holding on and that we need all of this bracing and stuff, but we actually don't. It's all the same once we actually let go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that people doing this practice will start to find that in their sitting practice, because this is such a wonderful way to practice sitting, that you can learn that if you just align your body and then release, that quality of rising, of lifting and being held, comes in effortlessly, so you don't have to hold yourself up. So many people slouch and fall into couches and poor posture because it's exhausting for them to sit correctly. But it's just because they haven't let go while they're sitting correctly. And they'll discover, oh, I'm still being held up. Same thing with the mind and the emotions. People think that if they just soften their mind and stop trying all the time, they'll just fall into a puddle of some kind and never move again. They'll just sit in the corner staring at the wall or something. But when they finally release it, what they discover is that they're actually free to express themselves and to live their lives. They've just been believing that the part of them that gives them the reason to live is that part that they let go of, when that's actually the one that's been causing the problem the whole time.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that relates to what you were talking about earlier, the difference between the scholar and the dumb sage.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I remember working at the tea house years ago, studying with Master ZhiCheng, and one of the people working was a very high stress person, but only at work. And they would come on and they would like put on this work face, and they would just become this very unhappy, very worked up individual. And at a tea house, it's not quite fitting.
Mm.
And we talked about it, and they said, you don't understand, if I don't get, like, they didn't phrase it this way, but basically, if I don't get stressed, then I won't do any work.
Mm.
And they believed that that was how work got done. And of course, it was something they learned from their boss and their parents, and it's a misunderstanding. That was just the thing that made all of their work miserable. And so they were miserable because they were stressed at work. And so they felt like if they were not stressed, that they wouldn't push through the misery. But if they weren't stressed, they wouldn't be miserable. It's just this weird circular space they were stuck in.
Yeah. And that can be especially difficult if the culture itself is miserable.
That's true. Yeah. A lot of corporate culture seems like that. The tea house, to be clear, it wasn't like that. It was just this one person.
Maybe they came from the corporate world.
Maybe. And it's the same thing in the body. We imagine we require tension to sit up. And it's because we're exhausted, and the sitting is exhausting, so we have to hold it. But if we just released all the tension, then it wouldn't be exhausting and we wouldn't have to hold it, you know. But it's scary to step out of that particular cycle. When I first started standing and shifting my weight without any tension in my legs, I was hanging on to a windowsill because I was sure that I was going to fall down. Because the only way that I knew how to stand was by gripping my legs. I didn't understand that it's not required. And I was just feeling like I was floating. And what I had realized is that the entire experience that I had of feeling stable and strong in my legs was that I was experiencing my own tension. That's how I labeled strength and stability, was tension. And when the feeling of tension went away, I thought that I had become unstable and weak. And it was just a misunderstanding. And I think that we're like that mentally, emotionally, physically. We think that we need a fist to get anything done or to make things happen. And it's literally the thing in the way. So as you soften your body, you release and lengthen into these movements. Stop trying hard. Notice if there's some desire to go further or to touch your feet, to do it differently, to be differently. And see if you soften that part of you, if the end result isn't that you go a little bit further maybe, or in the very least you're more comfortable because you're not unhappy with what's actually happening in the moment, which of course is tension, which makes everything tense. Please be kind to yourself. That's good.
Thanks.
Letting everything go. Lengthening upward, softening your shoulders, your neck, and just fall around the circle. Breathing comfortably. Don't tighten your legs, don't tighten your back. You're just letting your legs and your spine lengthen. Just be easy. Be comfortable. And if you have those background, when you had a moment where you were simply present and quiet, comfortable, how I'm describing lying on my back, looking at the clouds and a tree blowing, just this moment of perfect peace in between everything. If you have one of those moments in your background and you call upon that experience, it's still in you. And you go, oh, that feeling of being open and soft, and your tissue release, and your jaw is soft, and the breath gets deep, and everything releases to the ground, and there's that sense of warmth and comfort through your body, and your mind gets clear, and colors become bright because you're not caught up and lost in stories you're telling yourself. That space of simply being here, is so magical. You remember it because it's such a magical moment. You can live that way. It is the most basic, simple human experience. So as we finish the practice here, softening the jaw and the tongue, lying down, sitting, see if you can allow that sense, this remembered sense of what it's like just to be you, just to be here, to be the central part of the practice. It's very different than trying to get it done. If you'd like to lie flat, of course, please feel free. Letting your body soften to the floor. Oh, look, I get my view of gazing at the sky beneath the tree.
That's kind of nice.
Your whole body releases. Feel yourself fall to the floor, letting go. Your awareness spreads out through your body. Just letting everything integrate through the process of letting go. Letting your awareness settle in Dantian. Slowly spreading out through the body. Feeling the space around you, your awareness releasing outward. Thank you very much. I can answer some questions if there's any.
Yeah, we've got some good ones in here.
Good.
Let's see. So Del had some really good questions. He said, I read a Daoist meditation post that said today, if you sit and do nothing, that's called, quote, stupid sitting. And that you should always have some intention when you sit. Can you elaborate on this?
That's kind of what I was talking about in the sense of, well, again, I don't know the context these people were talking about it in. It could just be that they were saying that there's a whole contingent of people that come and do practices, not just Taoist practices, but yogic practices or, whatever. And they go and maybe they sit in a Zen hall, we'll say, and they just sit down and they're just sort of there. Maybe they're looking around a little bit. On their mind, they're replaying the last time that they had a conversation with a girlfriend when they were 15 years old or something. And then they go home. And it's just like them sitting and staring at the television. Nothing happens. And people do versions of that all the time. They go to a Tai Chi class for 35 years. And they go every weekend or something, every 2 days. And they just sort of show up and do the form. They don't really know why they're doing the form or how they're doing it. They like the people. Maybe somebody brings donuts, whatever. And then they go home and they're fine. And there's nothing really wrong with that. It's perfectly fine to live your life that way, to do that. People go to the gym. They lift some weights. They do something. Then they go home. They spend most of the time chatting with their neighbor. Nothing changes about their body. All of these things are fine. That's a perfectly acceptable way to live. And yet it doesn't really progress you in any particular direction. And so at the gym, you write things down. If you're in the Zen center, they say, here's what we're cultivating. And Taoists are famous for having two things. One is this deep and abiding sense of peace and letting go. But there's also this seemingly paradoxical thing of, like, you know exactly what you're developing. There's all of these lists and poems and stories about here's what to expect when you accomplish this thing. And then you do the next thing. And it's a cultivation series that people will talk about Tao often as a path, as a method. And so if what they were saying was it's dumb to go and just sort of sit there, but not really know what you're developing, then that can be their random judgment on people who'd like to just go and sit there and have donuts, and that's fine. It may also be a misunderstanding of a translation for like bun or dai, these terms that kind of mean stupid or dumb. And they don't use those in the Tao Te Ching, but they do talk about this idea of like letting yourself be stupid, letting yourself feel dumb, ignorant, because you're not trying to be part of the world, the red dust, the affairs of the world. And instead you are just comfortable being you. comfortable enjoying the sunshine, comfortable deepening your awareness of the taste of your tea, and not trying to go out and get accolades and be the thing, because one tends to lead to suffering and destruction. One tends to lead to peacefulness and grass in your hair. So of those two, I tend to know which one I prefer. But again, because I'm not sure what they're describing, I think that sometimes people can also misunderstand intent. The intent that we want to cultivate is this intentless intent. Sure, we have an intention, but it's barely there. Or the intention is to be free of intent, which is always a funny thing. In any kind of spiritual circle, you're practicing to be free of desire, but it's the desire to practice that gets you to practice there until you're free of desire. And so, again, I'm not quite certain what these people are talking about, but I feel like it's worth recognizing that the very first step is always to settle as best you can. Well, the first step is to show up, to do your best to show up, even if it's just that somebody brings donuts and that's why you're there. Fine. That was the whole reason that Mel was coming to the Daoist ZhiCheng classes, because people were bringing snacks. And look where she is now.
Yeah.
And then the next thing to develop is the most foundational thing, which is this basic level of just being here. I'm just here. I'm just noticing my breath. I'm not trying to change my breath. I'm just noticing my body. I haven't noticed my body in decades. Maybe I should notice my body. But I'm not trying to do anything about it. I'm just here. And that is a very important skill. And so if you were literally just to go, you showed up, you had your donuts, and you just sat there, whatever there is, and you just practice being okay with being yourself. You're just here. You're not doing anything, not trying to get anywhere. That is a hugely amazing skill that would change people's lives if they would develop it. But instead we jump to step 6. Oh, now I need to develop immortality. Oh, now I need to whatever. And it's the wrong direction, in my opinion.
So Del asks, this whole quote, doing, non-doing, are you referring to that? Wu Wei?
Wei, Wu Wei, doing, non-doing is the primary method of Taoism. The main method of Taoism is that it happens on its own. Dao Fa Ziren. Ziren is like self-so, natural. It happens all on its own. Everything that we do is trying to create the conditions within which something happens on its own, not us trying to control and do things. So that's part of Wei Wu Wei. Part of Wei Wu Wei is also doing, non-doing. So I'm going to get my shoulder to drop. What am I going to do? I'm going to pull my shoulder down, or can I undo the thing that's holding it up? Oh, my shoulder went down, but I didn't move my shoulder down. I let go of the thing that was holding it up. I undid. What Shifu says, don'ting. The skill we get good at is don'ting. Why am I breathing better? Is it because I'm pulling my breath in and pushing it out and I'm breathing? Or is it because I've learned how to let go of all of the resistance to my breath so my breath moves on its own? One is making space and the thing happens on its own. One is, instead of trying to push the ocean up on the shore, you drag a path with your finger through the sand and the water flows into that space where you made room. You're don'ting. You're just making space. That's the doing, non-doing in part. Does that make sense, do you think?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much more that I think about when I think about like what the word dumb means in this context. And I think you answered it very, very beautifully.
I did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done.
Who knew?
I just want to make space for other questions if anyone has any. Let's see, Del says, thank you for describing that. And then I think he had another question. I'm just scrolling up here. Okay. So there was an observation. If I rest my awareness gently enough for my mind to soak in, my lower abdomen oftentimes will begin to move. Like just now, this was earlier in the practice,
Mm-hmm.
It was rolling down and up and in. It was like my awareness made it do that, especially when I go to that space in between the navel and spine. Is this feeling/movement from me just releasing the tension in the area, or is my dantian activating?
It could be either, probably both. As your dantian starts to cultivate, it activates and moves. There's all these phases, like they call it gudan, which is like the, Shifu says it's like the sound of the lid on the boiling pot. It's bubbling, the water's bubbling beneath, and so the lid is jumping around, gudan, gudan, gudan. And you'll feel it vibrate and move, almost like it's a muscle shaking, but it's happening at a different rate than the muscles would shake. And it's all fine. It's just in the same way that other people will experience emotional release or heat or cold or whatever. Things are happening. The rotational dantian, the one that moves during practice, like Tai Chi practice or something, is a different location than the one we're working at here, the alchemical space. But you'll feel all kinds of things, and it's all fine. And it's best to not dwell on it, because if your mind gets stuck trying to then make it happen, then it causes problems, as with everything. The goal is always just to be like, okay, I back away more. The more you back away and just settle, the better it gets. So we try not to talk about it too much, because then people get caught on trying to feel things, and that actually interrupts the process and makes it less likely to happen. Or worse, we start to imagine that it's happening, and because people can imagine all kinds of things, and then nothing's actually happening, but we're imagining things are happening, and that's worse, because now we're following the wrong path entirely. And so, yeah, it's perfectly natural if those things are happening. It could just be tension releasing, could be gas. Daoist gas. But it's all fine. It's a good sign, as long as it's happening because you're letting go and not because you're trying to do something. Any other good questions? Oh, you're typing. Okay.
Let me see here. Let's see. Chris asks, if I work mainly on kidney points, will that help to make me less depleted?
Well, when you say work, do you mean like within the context of this practice? You could work on them too much, and you could start to deplete the kidney channel. But remember, the kidneys are not just the kidney channel. The whole body is part of the kidney system. The body is one thing. The kidney channel is useful, and you can certainly work on those points in a casual way, in the context of everything else, and it will help to nourish the kidneys somewhat. But the main thing that helps to nourish the kidneys is rest. Rest and enough liquids, enough food, because the kidneys are like the deep savings account. And if we're constantly spending from all our various accounts, eventually it starts to dip into that savings account and pull away. And so, yeah, energetically speaking, you have to rest if you want to nourish the kidneys and begin to cultivate that way. Eat enough food, do all of the main 4 pillars. What are the 4 pillars of Chinese medicine?
Sleep.
Sleep?
Food. Community. Oh, no, you were talking about something else.
Oh, that was something else. Yeah, but that's a good one. Well, we can say mental emotional balance.
Yes.
That's right.
That's a good one.
And
oh no.
Proper movement, exercise.
Yes. Movement. Chris got it.
Chris knows.
Nice, Chris.
Yeah. So that quality of if all 4 of those are imbalanced, then our system gets really much closer to balance. If any one of those things is out of balance, then it's impossible for us to be healthy. You can't, even if you sleep well, you have a very balanced mental, emotional life, and you exercise the right amount, not too much, if you don't eat, then you'll die. Or if you eat badly, you can't be healthy. Similarly, even if you eat well and your mind is very clear and all these things are there, if you never sleep, you're screwed. And so you have to have all 4 of those to be a balanced human. And so that's the source of kidney chi. So you can't fake it. You can't fake kidney chi any more than you can fake sleep. You have to rest. You have to eat. You have to drink. You have to move. You have to quiet your mind. Without any of those things in place, if the mind is running all the time, it's like a fire that just burns all of your chi and damages your body and your mind. And so it's not necessarily an easy course to go on, but that's the way to nourish kidney chi. And so you can certainly work on the kidney points a little bit. It will help. It will help, but don't be fooled that that's enough.
Del asks, so you don't believe in breatharianism then?
I have really fun stories about breatharianism that I will not share here. But suffice it to say, no, I have no reason to believe in it. I have been exposed to some famous people who teach breatharianism. When you know the people, the hotel staff for the hotel that these people stay at, and you get to hear what's actually happening when the people that clean their trash cans and all these things. Oh yeah, no, I don't have any reason to believe in it.
Chris asks, frauds?
Yeah, in the very least, frauds would be the nice way to talk about it. People get injured from people lying. I have spent a good portion of my life and my practice dealing with people who make claims that when I go to look are not just untrue, are getting sick or dying or in die, that it has made me very skeptical of claims, because you can go and meet these people and cover them and follow them around for a while and get to know them and talk to the people around them. And best thing to do is to talk to their family if you can. And then you just find out what they're actually. If you ever want to know anything about me, talk to Mel.
Happy to share.
The horror stories. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you. Enjoy your practice.